We need to be quick, he was saying. I can't leave Sarah alone too long. Why did you even bring her? Amber pouted. Everyone knows about us anyway. My blood ran cold. Everyone knew? I'd been the only one in the dark. I had to, Michael replied. Appearances, you know? Just a little longer, and then we can figure something out. Promise? She asked, running her hand down his chest. Promise, he assured her before kissing her again. I stood frozen, watching my husband betray me in public at his company event, surrounded by people who apparently all knew about their affair. The humiliation was overwhelming. I could have turned and run. I could have caused a scene right there. Instead, I walked calmly back to the table, my mind racing with what to do next. I always thought I had the perfect marriage. Growing up in a small town in northern Michigan, I didn't have many examples of what a healthy relationship looked like. My parents divorced when I was 8, and most of my friends came from broken homes too. When I met Michael in college, it felt like I'd finally found something different. Michael was charming, ambitious, and so attentive during those early years. We married right after graduation, me with my nursing degree and him with his business degree. We settled in Chicago, where he landed a job at a prestigious marketing firm. I found work at Northwestern Memorial and quickly moved up to charge nurse in the cardiac unit. The first 5 years were everything I dreamed about. We saved money, traveled during our vacations, and started planning for a family. Michael was making a name for himself at the firm, and I supported him through every late night and weekend he had to work. I believed in him completely. Things started changing when Michael was promoted to Associate Director of Client Services. Suddenly, he was attending more business dinners and networking events than ever before. He started coming home smelling like expensive perfume that wasn't mine. His texts became secretive, and he'd take calls in another room. I tried to ignore the signs. After all, I'd invested 7 years in this marriage, and I desperately wanted to believe he was the man I thought he was. Sarah, I have to attend the firm's annual charity gala this weekend, Michael announced one evening as I was preparing dinner. It's mandatory for all directors. That's fine, I replied, stirring the pasta sauce. What should I wear? Something formal? There was an uncomfortable pause. Actually, I think it's better if I go alone this time. It's mostly just business talk, and the CEO specifically mentioned keeping the guest list tight. I put down the wooden spoon and turned to face him. You've never gone to a gala without me before. It's different now that I'm in management, he said, not meeting my eyes. I need to focus on networking. Something in his tone made my stomach tighten, but I nodded anyway. I'd always been the supportive wife. I didn't want to be the one holding him back from success. The night of the gala, Michael spent an unusually long time getting ready. He wore his most expensive suit, the one I'd bought him for our anniversary, and doused himself in cologne. I sat on our bed watching him adjust his tie in the mirror. You look handsome, I said, trying to hide the uneasiness in my voice. Thanks, he replied distantly. Don't wait up. These things usually run late. After he left, I tried to distract myself with a movie, but my mind kept drifting to Michael. Was I being paranoid, or was something really going on? Around midnight, I decided to check his work email. We shared passwords as a matter of trust early in our marriage, though lately he'd been changing his personal accounts. His work email was still the same. I found it immediately, an email thread with his assistant, Amber. They were discussing the gala, but there was no mention of it being restricted to employees only. In fact, several colleagues were bringing spouses. Even worse, I found flirtatious messages dating back months, with plans for weekend strategy sessions at hotels. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through email after email. I discovered that Amber had been with Michael for at least 6 months. The betrayal cut deep, not just the affair, but the elaborate lies he'd constructed around it. I was still awake when Michael stumbled in at 3 a.m., drunk and smelling of Amber's signature perfume. He was surprised to see me sitting in the living room with all the lights on. Sarah, why are you still up? How was the gala? I asked calmly. Good. Lots of networking. He loosened his tie and avoided my gaze. And how's Amber? Did she enjoy it too? His face went pale. What are you talking about? I held up my phone, displaying a photo I'd found in his email, him and Amber at a hotel from the previous month. I know everything, Michael. The business trips, the networking events, all of it. You went through my emails? He tried to sound outraged, but the guilt was written all over his face. Don't you dare try to make this about me invading your privacy, I said, my voice surprisingly steady despite feeling like I might shatter into a million pieces. How long has it been going on? He collapsed onto the couch, head in his hands. Sarah, it's not what you think. Amber and I, it just happened. It doesn't mean anything. 6 months of hotel rooms doesn't just happen, Michael. I'll end it, he said quickly. I'll transfer her to another department. We can go to counseling. I stood up. I need some time to think. I'm staying at Jessica's for a few days. Please, Sarah, he begged, suddenly sober. Don't tell anyone about this. The firm has a strict policy about relationships with subordinates. I could lose everything. Even in that moment, all he cared about was his reputation. But I nodded and packed a small bag. I needed space to clear my head. I spent 3 days at my friend Jessica's apartment, barely eating or sleeping, trying to decide what to do. On the 4th day, Michael called. Sarah, we need to talk. The annual client appreciation dinner is tomorrow night. It would look strange if you weren't there. Are you serious? You're worried about appearances right now. Please, he said. Everyone from the firm will be there with their spouses. If you don't come, people will talk. After the dinner, we can discuss our future. I promise. Against my better judgment, I agreed. Maybe it would give me closure, one way or another. The dinner was at an upscale restaurant downtown. I wore a red dress that Michael had always loved, did my makeup perfectly, and put on a brave face. When I arrived, Michael was already there, mingling with colleagues. He gave me a quick kiss on the cheek that felt more like a formality than affection. Thank you for coming, he whispered. It means a lot. As I looked around the room, I immediately spotted Amber. She was wearing a tight black dress and kept glancing in our direction. Michael introduced me to several clients and colleagues, keeping his hand on the small of my back as if everything was normal. During dinner, I was seated next to Michael at the main table. He played the role of devoted husband flawlessly, asking if I wanted more wine, laughing at my comments, touching my hand occasionally. It was all so calculated that it made me sick. Halfway through the main course, Michael's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and excused himself. Client emergency, he explained to the table. I'll just be a minute. I watched as he stepped outside the dining room. A few minutes later, I noticed Amber was also missing from her table. My heart pounded in my chest as I excused myself and headed toward the restrooms. As I rounded the corner to a quiet hallway, I heard them before I saw them. Michael had Amber pressed against the wall, kissing her neck while she giggled. They were partially hidden by a large decorative plant, but I could see them clearly. We need to be quick, he was saying. I can't leave Sarah alone too long. Why did you even bring her? Amber pouted. Everyone knows about us anyway. My blood ran cold. Everyone knew? I'd been the only one in the dark. I had to, Michael replied. Appearances, you know? Just a little longer, and then we can figure something out. Promise? She asked, running her hand down his chest. Promise, he assured her before kissing her again. I stood frozen, watching my husband betray me in public at his company event, surrounded by people who apparently all knew about their affair. The humiliation was overwhelming. I could have turned and run. I could have caused a scene right there. Instead, I walked calmly back to the table, my mind racing with what to do next. When Michael returned 10 minutes later, straightening his tie, I smiled at him. Everything okay with the client? All sorted, he replied smoothly. I nodded and took a sip of my wine. Good. The company's CEO stood to make a toast, thanking clients and employees for a successful year. As applause filled the room, an idea formed in my mind. It was risky, but I was done being the fool. Michael, I whispered, I need to use the restroom. I'll be right back. He nodded distractedly as he chatted with a client beside him. I didn't go to the restroom. Instead, I approached the CEO's wife, a woman I'd met several times at company functions. "Janet, could I ask you something? It's rather important." "Of course, Sarah," she replied warmly. "I understand the company has a strict policy about supervisors dating their subordinates," I said carefully. "Is that still the case?" Janet's expression shifted slightly. "Yes, absolutely. Robert takes that very seriously." "Why do you ask?" I took a deep breath. I'm in an uncomfortable position. I've recently discovered something that violates that policy, but I'm concerned about the repercussions of reporting it. Janet's eyes narrowed. "If you know of a violation, it should be reported. Robert ensures these matters are handled discreetly." I nodded. "Thank you. That's good to know." Next, I approached Robert himself as he stepped away from the table. "Robert, do you have a moment? There's something I think you should know." 10 minutes later, I returned to my seat beside Michael. He was in the middle of telling a story to the people around us and barely acknowledged my return. When dessert was served, Robert clinked his glass again. If I could have everyone's attention for one more announcement. The room quieted. At our firm, we pride ourselves on our professional standards and ethical conduct, Robert began. It's what sets us apart from our competitors. Unfortunately, I've just been made aware of a serious breach of our company policies. Michael shifted in his seat beside me. "Michael Williams," Robert continued, fixing his gaze on my husband, "I understand you've been engaged in an inappropriate relationship with your assistant, Amber Collins." The room went completely silent. Michael's face drained of color. "This is a violation of our non-fraternization policy, especially considering your supervisory position over Miss Collins. Both of you are suspended, effective immediately, pending a full investigation." Michael stood up abruptly. "Robert, this is a misunderstanding. I can explain." "Save it for HR on Monday," Robert cut him off. "This dinner is for celebrating our valued clients and employees who uphold our standards." I felt every eye in the room turn toward us. Michael looked at me, realization dawning on his face. "You did this," he hissed. I stood up slowly, picking up my purse. "You humiliated me in front of all these people who apparently knew about your affair. You brought me here tonight to keep up appearances while sneaking off with her." I gestured toward Amber, who looked like she might be sick. I simply made sure the right people knew the truth. Without waiting for his response, I addressed the table. "I apologize for the disruption. Please enjoy the rest of your evening." Then I walked out, head held high. Michael tried calling me repeatedly as I drove home, but I ignored him. When he finally arrived at our house 2 hours later, I was packing his things. "Sarah, how could you do this to me?" he demanded, slamming the front door. "Do you have any idea what you've done to my career?" "About the same thing you did to our marriage," I replied, tossing his clothes into a suitcase. "You can stay with Amber now. I'm sure she'll be thrilled. They're investigating both of us. She'll probably be fired too." I stopped and looked at him. "That's what you're worried about? Not that you've destroyed our 7-year marriage? Not that you humiliated me in front of your entire company? Just your job and your girlfriend's job." "You don't understand the damage you've caused," he said, running his hands through his hair. "I understand perfectly," I replied. "Now get out of my house." "Your house? I paid for most of this place." I smiled then, actually smiled. "You might want to check the deed. It's in my name. You insisted on it for tax purposes, remember? Said it would be better for our future." "Well, this is my future now, not ours." The look on his face was priceless as the realization hit him. In his quest to hide assets and minimize taxes, he'd put our home solely in my name. "You can't do this," he sputtered. "I already have. My lawyer will be contacting you tomorrow." I zipped up his suitcase and rolled it to the door. "Your car is still in your name, so you can take that. I've already frozen our joint accounts." "Where am I supposed to go?" "Not my problem," I said, opening the front door. "Maybe try the Four Seasons. I hear they have nice rooms. You should know. You've booked enough of them with Amber." After he left, I changed the locks and blocked his number. The next few weeks were a blur of legal meetings and paperwork. Michael and Amber were both fired after the company investigation confirmed their relationship and found evidence they'd been falsifying expense reports to cover their hotel stays. The divorce was finalized in record time. Michael didn't fight it, his reputation was in tatters, and he was struggling to find a new job in the industry. With the evidence I had of his infidelity and financial misconduct, my lawyer negotiated a settlement that left me with the house, my retirement accounts intact, and a significant portion of our investments. I heard through mutual friends that Michael and Amber's relationship imploded within months after they lost their jobs. Apparently, their connection wasn't strong enough to withstand actual hardship. As for me, I transferred to a different hospital to start fresh. I bought a smaller place closer to the lake and adopted a dog from the shelter. It's been 2 years since that dinner, and I'm finally beginning to feel like myself again. Sometimes people ask if I regret exposing Michael the way I did. I tell them that public humiliation was exactly what he deserved. He chose to make a fool of me in front of everyone. I simply chose to make sure everyone saw who he really was. And so we've reached the end of today's story. Was it what you expected, or did it take a twist you didn't see coming? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below, and let's get a conversation going. If this story kept you hooked, make sure to hit that like button. And if you're new here or just haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to join our community. I bring you fresh, captivating stories every day, so click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.